Okay, we're started recording. So again, welcome to the Armatage Green Team's workshop on the problem with plastic and practical solutions. So let's get started. I'm going to briefly introduce our speakers here. From local nonprofit Eureka Recycling, we have Policy and Advocacy Manager Priscilla via Watt. So Priscilla, if you want to unmute quick and wave hello. And
Hey everybody, I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited to share some interesting and hopefully motivational information tonight. So it's really great to be here. And I'll pass it back to Lauren.
you. And then from the city of Minneapolis, we are lucky to have not one, but two staff members tonight. So we have our city recycling coordinator, Kellie Kish, and Green Corps member, Adriana Salse. So I'll have both of you guys unmute so that way you can pop out and just say hello to folks.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming. We're going to help answer some questions about what plastics are actually recyclable here in Minneapolis. And
thanks for having us here.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. And then from local zero waste shop, the first zero waste shop in Minnesota, we have Educator D. Lukas. And D, let's see.
Yes. Hey, everybody. Happy to be here. I am coming to you from across the river in St. Paul. I help out Tare Market with educational opportunities such as this. I do healthcare technology during the day, so it's kind of fun to switch gears and put on a different hat in the evenings and be with you tonight.
Thank you so much. I'm personally really excited. So with that, yeah, let's dig in. We'll have Priscilla kick us off.
Okay, let me share my screen here. Hopefully this works. Thursday night, my computer is not tired. Okay, let me use the presentation mode. Okay, can everyone see that okay? Yes, great, awesome. So hi, it's great to be here, as I said earlier. I have been with Eureka for the past year, focusing on policy and advocacy. I'm living in St. Paul, but I previously moved from, so a year ago, I moved from Texas, where I was a community organizer on fracking in Houston. And so for those of you who saw the story of plastics, you may have seen my part of the story in there, where a community in Texas is profiled who are impacted directly by fracking. So I'm going to talk about sort of where, like, how do we end up with so much plastics? What are the impacts? And then what can we do? Sort of like, what's the problem and what are the solution, and what are we doing specifically at Eureka to address that? So for those of you who didn't see the story of plastics, 99% of plastics come from fossil fuels, and that's a big part of that story in the film, really trying to highlight that, and particularly highlight the problems that plastic has before they even enter the markets and enter our oceans and waterways. They pose a lot of problems to health and the environment well before that, as many of you had probably seen in the film. So a quick refresher on what fracking is. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but not everyone knows exactly what that entails. So fracking, or shale gas extraction, is literally just drilling a hole into a well, and particularly in a place where there's known oil or gas pockets deep into the shale. And this is about a mile deep into the ground that we're drilling these holes. So you have chemicals, sand, and water getting shot into this hole, into this well, and that causes the rock to crack, and that releases the oil and gas up to the surface. So a lot of you may be seeing those like pump jacks in photos of pump jacks, and that's really just pumping that oil and gas out of the ground. So this is the beginning of the plastics production, so to speak, and other fossil fuels as well. But this is what it actually looks like. It is a site that looks like this for about 6 to 8 weeks. So you can imagine for people who live near it, it's a nuisance. There are all kinds of environmental problems, but as you can see here, there's a lot of traffic problems, really loud, noisy type of infrastructure and drilling and all kinds of things. One of the things that I wanted to point out though in these photos is this this pond that you see. So as I mentioned earlier, water, sand, and chemicals get drilled into the ground. They have to come back up. So that water comes back up and it sits on the surface and it basically kind of evaporates. Or it's trucked somewhere else and they drill another hole and put it back into the ground. But again, this causes a lot of environmental or air quality impacts as those chemicals that are, some of those are cancerous, are just evaporated into the air, and people that are surrounding these facilities end up breathing those in. A lot of people associate, and you probably saw this in the film or on the cover of the Story of Plastics film, this is a flare. So when you have a fracked well, some of that gas is unwanted or there's nowhere for it to go. So what they end up doing is they just burn it. They just burn that gas in these flares. And typically it is permitted or allowed by the state, so long as it is not burning for more than 5 minutes. And I can't tell you guys how many times I worked with community members to report these to the state because they were burning not just for minutes, but days on end. And they're just burning all those toxic chemicals right into the air, right into the community. So as I mentioned, all of this is very harmful and toxic to humans. There are about 170 toxic chemicals used in fracking. And in one way, shape, or form, those are inhaled or ingested by people who live near these sites. And while a lot of this, I'm super familiar with a lot of this because I lived in Texas, and while we may not have any fracking in the state of Minnesota, this is super important because those very same plastics that we're all using, we're all trying to figure out how to deal with, come from places like this. And so when we talk about plastic pollution, we also really want to highlight the fact that that pollution starts at the wellhead and it impacts the people that live near and around those wells. So part of the problem that comes up with fracking and plastics is that for plastics to be made, you need what's called wet gas. And that wet gas is called ethane, that turns into ethylene, that turns into polyethylene, that turns into your everyday plastics. And there's been a huge surge in wet gas because of all the fracking, right? And so that's why we need more pipelines and more of these facilities called crackers to turn this wet gas into plastics. And so there is not necessarily a surge in demand for plastics, right? We're not like knocking on fossil fuel companies' doors and begging them for more plastics. It is a result of more fracking resulting in more wet gas. So we just have a lot of it, and they're trying to get rid of it and ultimately profit from this material that would otherwise be burned or piped somewhere else where it would get burned. And so to give you an idea, right, of like how you get from that well to, a plastic fork, is you go from a natural gas, they extract ethane from that, it gets cracked. And I don't want to go into the details of that, but basically it turns into a multi-bonded molecule, and it gets turned into everything and anything that you can think of that is plastic, from, let's see, it's on here, flooring, carpeting, paint, nail polish remover. Like there's just so many things that have this ethane product or ethane chemical as a sort of initial material to make what we use today. And there are a lot of investments in more infrastructure to create more plastics. As I said earlier, more natural gas, you have more product, so they want to make a profit out of that product. So there are all these investments going into making these facilities that will produce more plastic for us in the future. And the rate that they're going, we're looking at about, this is actually kind of a dated figure at this point, we're looking at about 33% more plastics by 2050 if these investments and if this infrastructure is built. So as I mentioned, I'm from Houston, and I wanted to show you guys what that looks like. Houston, Texas and Louisiana in particular are one of the most plastic producing, produce some of the most plastics in the world. And in Houston alone, we have about a 16-mile stretch of petrochemical infrastructure that is making plastics and all kinds of materials that are derived from fossil fuels. And I mentioned nail polish remover because while I lived there, there was this huge fire that happened. And one of the tanks that was storing some of the chemicals was the, I'm spacing on what is used in a lot of our nail polish removers, but it was that chemical. And so the state said, well, people use it in nail polish remover, it can't be hazardous to human health, which is completely false. So just to give you a visual idea of what that looks like for communities in the South who are dealing with the plastic production issue. So that brings me to Eureka and what we're doing today, how we're trying to mitigate our plastic problem, and really trying to create a solution while a short-term solution while we think of a long-term one. So at Eureka, we recycle paper, glass, plastics, and we are really focused on trying to reduce waste, right? We're not trying to create more recycling for the heck of recycling, but really trying to think about like, how do we get to a zero waste society? How does recycling itself become a thing of the past? And so we strongly believe in reducing waste. We strongly believe that through policy, through local community action, that we can really get to a zero waste future. I just finished writing a letter to the editor today about why zero waste is sort of an option B for the waste that we have today. There's a requirement for more landfills because we're running out of space. And so how do we get to that? Like, what does that path B look like? And we strongly believe that investments in more recycling infrastructure, in composting, can really get us to that point. The latest NPCA report shows that just under 80% of what is being landfilled or incinerated can be recycled or composted. So that's just to give you an idea of, what's being thrown away and what can be captured and recycled or composted and not, wasting away, so to speak. So we really believe that recycling is a step to get us there, but not quite the perfect solution for our plastic problem. So on that note, I will pass it over to Kellie.
And Adriana is actually going to kick us off, but I will start and say that the city's recyclables do currently go to Eureka to be sorted back out. So we very much value everything that Eureka does in trying to make sure that what we bring them does not only get recycled, but that they try to make sure that they're using as close to Minneapolis markets as possible to support the local economy, reduce the environmental impacts with transportation, and create local jobs. So we very much value our partnership with Eureka, and Adriana will kick us off.
Yep. Hi, everyone. So we're going to talk a little bit about the problems and challenges with recycling plastics. Let's see. Oh, are you gonna let me? Okay. So kind of going off on what Priscilla and Kellie has just mentioned, the city of Minneapolis does partner with Eureka Recycling. So all of our recycling goes there, and we're also lucky to have 2 other MRFs that are within city limits. So love to see that all of our recycling is getting sorted within city and state boundaries. So currently we do have 97% of our City of Minneapolis customers do have recycling. And we are seeing about 8.5% contamination. This is numbers from 2019. The data for 2020 is still getting finalized, but we'll have that soon, which is still, it is kind of a lot, but it's still really good. A lot of other major cities have a lot of contamination rates above 10%, you know, even higher than that. So although there is still a lot of work to do in terms of reducing contamination, we're still seeing really good numbers within City of Minneapolis. And as Priscilla mentioned, you know, the things that are going in our recycling cart that are getting sorted are various food, beverage, toiletry containers, as well as papers that haven't been too soiled by food contaminants. And there's a whole detailed list here, you know, if you want to come back later and check that out, making sure what you're putting in your cart is correct. And then, you know, we want to make sure we're keeping stuff out of our recycling cart that is not supposed to be there, such as plastic bags, wrapper film, scrap metal, electronics, pressurized cylinders, anything that's too large. And we'll go through the details on why some of these items cannot be recycled, whether that's due to it can be collected or sorted, or there's a market for it at the end. So we'll go into those details in a bit. Okay, so we're going to go into a little detail on how our recycling is sorted once it reaches the recycling sorting facility, also known as a MRF. So these are kind of all the different equipment that's used to sort the different recycling that comes into the facility. And I'll go through each one. So kind of a lot here at once. So first and foremost, so you put all of your recycling in your recycling cart. The City of Minneapolis trucks comes and picks it up and drops it off at Eureka. They start off dumping all of it on a large pavement, and then they're taken with a pickup truck and put in in-feed conveyor. There'll be like some initial sorting, and we have this first preliminary pre-sort house. So here we actually have employees who are manually taking out contaminants. So that is things like plastic bags, large plastic items, random metal items, propane, helium. So essentially anything that wasn't supposed to be put in the recycling cart to begin with, they're looking for those items because we'll talk about a bit later, but they pose a lot of problems, whether for safety or efficiency's sake. So each person has a trained item that they're looking for, and it can be one of those various items. And that's kind of the whole point of the pre-sort house, is to make sure that what's going into the rest of the facility actually should be there. So then it goes into these star screens, and I wish I had them with me, but essentially what this equipment is for is kind of has things that look like gears, and it's meant for flat surfaces, so paper items, to float over top, while the holes in between each star screen allows containers, so like three-dimensional items, to drop down. And that's really important, and we'll go into why some items like plastic bags are bad for these recycling facilities, specifically the star screens, and messes up this sorting process. Also, at this point, you'll have all of the glass jars and items that are able to be recycled in your recycling cart are going to be broken down. So they'll get sorted out, and talk about a little later how this poses some problems with small items, but essentially all of the glass is broken, which is why a lot of our glass items, whether they're broken or not, can still go in our recycling cart because they're broken anyway at the sorting facility. And none of our crew members, when picking up our carts, are manually touching any of our recycling that is in the carts. So then we also have this thing called the eddy current here on the bottom left. And essentially what that is, so the eddy current, when you have two magnets, let's say two north facing, you try and push them together, you feel that force, that not retraction, like a reverse magnet. It does the same thing with aluminum. So in the sorting facility, there is that eddy current that every other item type will just pass on through down into that, down into that hole, and then all of the aluminum will feel that eddy current and jump into a separate container. So sorting out those aluminum cans. And then we have magnets that will kind of suck up any steel type items. So commonly, you know, with glass jars, they will have a metal top. So that's great. The glass gets broken, the glass is sorted, and then the metal tops will be left and they'll get sucked up and go with the metal items for further recycling, further sorting. And then we then kind of later on the chain of sorting at the facility, you have optical sorters. And this is usually using laser technology. So it's this equipment, this laser that has been trained to pick up or look for certain items, whether that be certain plastic types or other items. We'll go into a little bit describing the different kind of resin plastic types later on in the presentation. So these lasers they're looking for what, like specific kinds, and when they see it, when they pass under this light, they'll get shot out into a separate container to get sorted with those specific types of materials. I believe that's all there. And then finally at the end, you know, we have all of those separate carts. They were sorted throughout the facility, and we get these beautiful, large baled recyclables of all these different material types, whether that be like PET or paper and cardboard, all of that aluminum. You know, we have in these nice bales until they're accumulate and are able to be sold in the recycling markets. Okay, and then I believe Kellie, if you want to take over and talk about plastic resin types.
Yeah, so many people know these symbols well, and many people have no idea what the numbers and the symbols mean. So really all that those symbols are telling you is what type of plastic an item is made out of. They were never put on containers to tell you whether or not it was recyclable, just to help identify the specific chemical compounds that are in that plastic item. There are 7 of them. Anything that is not in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 is an other. So many of the newer types of plastics that have all been designed in, you know, the past 10 years are all in that number 7 category, which makes none of them easy to separate, identify, or sort for any form of recycling. Now, although there are 7 main types that we find out there, only 3 of them can go in your recycling cart in Minneapolis and effectively be recycled. Adriana, will you go to the next slide, please?
Kellie, we had one quick question about putting caps
and I will get to it.
Good, thank you.
Yes, I have visuals too. So here's where the fun part comes in. Everybody hold your hand up. All right, now put your middle finger down. And this is from one of our Minneapolis recycling block leaders, but these plastics, 1, 2, 4, and 5, are the ones that have markets to be recycled. Number 4s are not so good friends, Mr. Plastic Bag, or Miss, or Mix. So they have markets. They can be recycled if you bring them clean and dry to a store drop-off location. Other than that, the only ones that can go in your cart in Minneapolis are 1, 2, and 5. The good thing right now is the only place we really used to see number 4 plastics in our food and beverage containers were like the lids of a sour cream or cottage cheese type container. But I've actually had a really hard time finding any number 4s there anymore. Most of those have switched over to a number 2. So 1, 2, 4, 5 are the ones that have markets. 1, 2, 5 are the ones that can be recycled effectively in recycling carts in Minneapolis. Everybody got that easy visual? Share with friends? Cool. Okay, so now real quick, what does it actually mean for something to be able to be recycled? You have to be able to pick it up. That's pretty easy, or drop it off in the case of these bad boys. It has to be able to be sorted. And right now, we're going to talk mostly about sorting capabilities at the MRF. Adriana explained the process very simply. I will also say, if you haven't watched the video, there is Eureka has a video called The Story of a Cereal Box. If you search that on YouTube, you will get to see an actual process of material running through the facility itself. We do also, or used to, pre-COVID, offer tours of the MRF once a month. And once we are able to resume that again, we will be sure to let you all know of those opportunities as well. So it has to be able to be picked up or dropped off, has to be able to be effectively sorted, and there has to be someone who wants to buy it to turn it into something new. If there are not those three components, then an item cannot be recycled in current situations. So now, first and foremost, the problem with our plastic bags. The star screens, as Adriana said, the papers float over the top as the screens turn. The containers fall through the holes. When plastic bags get in there, what happens to them is they wrap around and around and around those gears, and they clog the holes where the containers would fall through. So then the containers start to travel over top of the screens with the paper. And we've got containers in with the paper, and it's just a big old mess. And those star screens, the plastic bags, and it's not just plastic bags, it's anything long and stringy. We like to call them tanglers. Garden hoses are a good one, window blinds, strapping tape. They have to shut down their facility for up to 2 to 4 hours every day. Employees have to physically climb in that equipment with box cutters to cut all of that stuff out of there. So they do really not only cause issues with sorting, but also can result in potential injuries to crews as well. So please, I'm sure most of the people here know about plastic bags, but if not, you do now, and please share with others. And then okay, hand back up. One other thing, no black plastics. And this comes back down to our number 2 on the can it be recycled list, is it has to be effectively sorted. And with those optical sorters, what they're doing is they're shooting a laser at an item, and that laser is looking for whatever specific composition it's been trained to identify. And what happens with the color black is it absorbs that laser light. So nothing is bouncing back to the system to tell it what it's made out of. So the system is essentially blind to the fact that those items are there. Now, I mean, it could be as simple as hand pulling all the black plastics, but the problem is that your black plastics could be a number 1, a number 2, a number 5, a number 6. They could be any of them. So for us to be able to even get to the possibility of recycling them, right now, people would have to hand look at every single one of those. And here we go, look. I've got one. They would have to hand look at every single piece, hand sort them by type, then have enough of them to make a bale of just this number black plastic, then have enough bales to have a truckload of them, and then someone would have to want to buy it to turn it into something new. And so all of that in line, there's not really any strong markets. It's really difficult to sort this stuff. Yes, we can collect it, but 1 out of 3 does not make it a recyclable item. So that is our issue with black plastics. And now moving on to the fun one that we have more questions about, small things and caps. So when you have a water bottle, this is glass, we're gonna pretend it's plastic right now. Your cap and your bottle are typically 2 different types of plastic. When your cap is off and it's loose, it's so small that right at that first stage at the facility, when the glass is broken, everything that's small in size is going to fall through the cracks with the glass. Here is what glass looks like. See that bottle cap right there? There's also a battery in here, a crayon, there's a metal bottle cap. This is glass as it leaves the recycling facility. If you leave your bottle cap on the bottle, the first thing they do when plastics get recycled is they grind it all up. And they kind of talked about this in the film a bit. But when it's ground up, the 2 different types of plastics have different buoyancies, so they naturally separate in water. So they are able to recycle both the cap and the bottle plastic, so long as that cap stays on the bottle. And with your metal bottle caps, them being nice and small, You can put those in a soup can, pinch that top shut, make sure they are contained, metal cap in metal soup can, and then put that right into the recycling. All right, then our problems with other plastics. So we're seeing the stuff on the upper left a lot more these days. It's this PET plastic, #1 plastic shipping material that says right on it, you can recycle me in your cart. We've got things like laundry baskets, we've got our synthetic clothing, kids' toys, shower curtains, toothbrushes. Some of the other challenges with recycling this material is it's not all one item. So with the kids' toy on the lower left, you've got a mix of metal. Sometimes you've got a mix of electronics in there. For the laundry basket, the recycling facility is only designed to accept things of a similar shape, weight, and size of our food and beverage containers. So that laundry basket is too big for that sorting facility. It could be recycled if dropped off at a specialty plastics recycler, of which there are 2 in the Twin Cities area, but they are kind of a hike away from here. One is in Mound and the other is in Elk River. And then the PET insulated packaging there, yes, it's PET, but that fabric-y PET is not able to be recycled with your pop bottle PET. So there's a lot of challenges with other types of items. And with like textile recycling, Hennepin County used to accept non-wearable textiles at their transfer stations, but just like what we saw in the video with a lot of the plastics from the United States going overseas, the county could not verify what was happening with the textiles after they left the United States, or how much of them were staying in the United States. And they were not comfortable with the idea of not knowing the answer if what they were telling residents was going to be recycled was just going to be dumped on another country. So that is the reason that that textile recycling program stopped. So we encourage you with clothing, buy really durable clothing, wear them as long as you can, fix them, repair them, darn them, mend them, do it all. And then unfortunately at its end of life, the best option right now is to throw that item away. And then, plastics, our glass can be infinitely recycled. Aluminum can be infinitely recycled back into an aluminum can. It actually only takes 60 days for an aluminum can to go from your recycling cart back to the store shelf as a new aluminum can. Plastics, not the same. A plastic water bottle can maybe once be made back into another plastic water bottle. What's mostly happening with them is that they're being downcycled into other plastic items like carpeting or t-shirts, or milk jugs sometimes are made back into milk jugs. They're probably the most recycled back into the same item. And that's largely because they're not dyed. But they often get made into landscape edging or plastic lattice, things of that nature that then at its end of lifestyle can't be recycled again. So recycled forever, recycled maybe once, and then thrown away. And then the unfortunate truth right now, and again, this was discussed in the story of plastic, that it's cheaper for companies to use virgin raw materials to make plastics than it is to make them out of recycled plastic. And having producer responsibility of mandatory recycled content, or not even allowing some of the stuff that we really just don't need to be made, is the better answer than continuing to pretend all of this is okay and that recycling will solve it, because as we all know, that's not the case. And then just real quick, Hennepin County sorted Minneapolis residential trash in 2016. 41% of what was in our trash was actual trash. 13.8% of that was recyclables, and another almost 1% was just plastic bags and film, and 3% were textiles. So a lot of that material, and this is, the fun thing about all of these types of pie charts is it's by weight. So if we're looking at this by volume, the weight of a plastic bottle compared to the weight of a diaper or our food scraps, like that is a massive amount of plastics that are going in the trash. There's a massive amount of things that just shouldn't be in the trash in the first place. So just wanted to include this in here for you to keep in mind all of the weights versus volumes, and that there is definitely a lot of improvement that we can do right here at the city level to divert our waste from the trash stream. And then I think and I guess we do have one other thing. We have a brand new campaign. It's called Love Your Stuff. And conveniently, our first topic is all on plastic. So if you're not signed up for our recycling reminder emails, please do. You will get the new piece of the campaign every 2 weeks. So right now we're just starting the middle one here with Reuse with Pride. And we have a young gentleman who is very proud of his handcrafted reusable water bottle. So again, if you haven't signed up for recycling reminders, please do that. And we will be happy to answer any other questions at the end. And we'll pass it on to Dee.
I do have 2 quick questions that came in, if it's okay, while Dee is getting her presentation queued up here. From Eethane, who had a question for Priscilla. What was happening between around 1950 to 2000 when natural gas production was pretty much level? And what are some of the main reasons for the post-2000 spike?
Oh, the better question is what wasn't happening between 1950 and 2000, and that was fracking. Fracking was not happening, or at least not to the extent that it was in the early 2000s. There was a huge spike in fracking across the country, and that's what led to that huge, there's just, a lot of supply in terms of natural gas. So there was a lot of incentive to make more plastic with that, with those chemicals. So yeah, that's a great timeline to notice, and how much things changed in terms of waste and plastic.
Thank you. And then from Anne, a question related to textiles. H&M was recycling clothing. Is that also an unknown program? And
I think H&M even having a textile recycling program is just kind of a form of greenwashing in and of itself, because they're one of the more fast fashion companies that, you wear a shirt once and it gets a hole in it. So you're essentially incentivized to throw that shirt away because your $5 t-shirt got a hole, and $5 doesn't really mean a whole lot to you. But just like most other things, the costs put on the people making those clothings to get you a $5 t-shirt, it's poor working conditions, low wages, all the bad stuff, all the bad environmental impacts for that $5 t-shirt. So I do not know all the research on that. I don't know if one of our other presenters knows the research on H&M's textile recycling better than I, but I would say if you don't know the answer and you want to really support a company, doing the research to find out those answers is a smart thing to do.
Thank you. And one more in the chat window that before we hand it off to Dee, on what happens to the milk cartons, the pure pack, the broth and juice boxes and Tetra Pak.
Do you want me to take it, Adriana?
I can talk about it a little. It's actually, and this is a good example. So with cartons, it's a good example of producer manufacturer accountability. So back in the day, I don't know the times, but when cartons first started being used, they weren't able to be recycled because cartons are made with different materials, different plastics, aluminum, etc. So it's very difficult to separate and actually recycle into new products. So residents were having the issue where there's a lot of cartons out in the market, but they can't be recycled and they want it to be recycled. So there was some pushback from consumers, requesting that these producers of cartons figured out how to get these items recycled. And so really cool, they did work with actual MRFs with the recycling sorting facilities to get cartons to be able to be recycled, to get them sorted correctly, and for them the process at paper pulp mills to be able to take that paper product out and recycle that into something new, and same thing with the plastic. So they really invested in the recycling infrastructure, and that's a really good example of how consumers, we do have some power in terms of getting things done and getting things a bit more sustainable without, you know, greenwashing. And Kelly, I don't know if you want to add anything onto that.
Well, I think one thing to add, and imagine that I have a carton too. So the tricky thing about these bad boys is, you know, they are recycling the paper in here, but only the paper, the multi-layers of plastic, and it's not wax, it is plastic. Or in the instance of like a soup broth container, that's where they have a layer of aluminum. That aluminum is not getting recycled. It's just the high quality paper that's in these. But when we talked about the sorting process, the very first step is paper, two-dimensional items from containers. Well, we want these to be sorted as a container. So please do not flatten them, or they will have a higher likelihood of going with the paper. So keep your containers in a container shape.
Thank you. I actually worked for Eureka Recycling when Tetra Pak was first accepted, and that was a really amazing example. I'm so grateful for the expertise here. And with that, I think we've gotten through all the questions in the chat window, and so I'm going to hand it off to Dee.
Great, thank you. Well, since we already did introductions, I'll kind of breeze past this slide, just a picture of my dogs and I enjoying the Superior hiking trail, and a picture of one of my many trips to Tare Market. And I kind of love that all of this, these conversations and topics came before mine. So I will kind of breeze through some of what I'm covering. Sorry, I should check. Are we all seeing my slideshow okay? Okay, great. Quick agenda. We'll run through, you know, why live more sustainably. I think the ladies who talked before me was a great introduction. What is zero waste? How to conduct a waste audit, steps to achieving zero waste in your home, and zero waste grocery shopping. And then we'll also talk about what Tare Market is, and certainly how we can support you in your sustainable or zero waste lifestyle. So we've heard a lot already this evening about why it's important to live more sustainably as humans. You know, we really have a significant impact on the environment around us, from air, water, soil, etc. Some of these pictures I'm sure you have seen. You know, it's really kind of frightening how what we are using here have really, it's reached the depths of the ocean. And, you know, the bird pictured here is hundreds of miles away from any sort of civilization, but here its stomach is full of plastic because it is just so widespread. And certainly living more sustainably, it looks different for each and every one of us, depending on, you know, where you live, how many people are in your household, what your lifestyle is like, but there are certainly steps that we can be taking to live more sustainably. All right, what do we throw away? So every single day we throw away about 4.4 pounds of trash per person and 1.3 pounds of recycling per person per day. And again, keeping in mind that this is what's thrown away, not even what's attempted to be recycled. And 25% of landfill waste is organic material, and 30% of that is packaging material. I've had this conversation several times with friends and family of, you know, if I have a banana peel, why do I have to compost it if it's just going to decompose at the landfill anyway? And there's a big difference between a banana peel going to the landfill and a banana peel going into the compost. So when it goes into the compost, it's open, there's oxygen there to allow it to decompose properly. When a banana peel goes to a landfill, it's pressed down and it's completely covered, so there's no oxygen available for it to decompose properly, and it's creating those greenhouse gases, CO2, methane, etc. It's off-gassing all of that, because again, it can't decompose properly. So we'll talk about compost a little bit later, but there is a big difference for your organic material ending up in the landfill versus going off to the compost. And 33% of all food produced is wasted. So not only is that food itself wasted, and again, probably, you know, most likely ending up in the landfill, but all the resources that it took to produce that food. So the water, the soil, the transportation to get it to the grocery store, you know, chances are some plastic wrap to also transport it, and the energy and resources you took to get it to your house. So it's not just the food itself, it's on a holistic macro level, there's a lot more being wasted. Single-use plastics, I think I'll kind of breeze through this one a little bit. We've talked a lot about plastic so far tonight, but important takeaway here is humans are buying a lot of plastic, and we're continuing to buy and use a lot of plastic. I think the most staggering here is humans buy approximately 1 million plastic bottles every single minute. That's, to me, that's just absolutely staggering. And then coffee cups. Americans toss 25 billion coffee cups each year, which cannot be completely recycled. So similar to what Kellie was talking about with the carton, our precious Starbucks and Caribou coffee cups, they are lined in plastic, so that actually can't be fully recycled. I do have a lot of my desk here. This is much more fun in person, but I do have a lot of switches that we've done in our household of 2. I mean, we are certainly not perfect by any means, but some easy switches that we've made that I would like to share with you guys. We'll maybe end with that because that's a little more fun for show and tell. But we listed here just some single-use plastic items that can be easily replaced. So, you know, plastic straw, I think reusable straws are kind of everywhere right now. They're very readily available, very inexpensively. Plastic cutlery, you know, there is really fancy bamboo reusable cutlery that's out there, and it's certainly available at Tare Market. And I certainly have several sets of it. When pre-COVID, my husband and I both worked downtown. So we both have a couple sets sitting at our desk that are now pretty lonely. But it's also kind of silly. We have fancy bamboo cutlery, but you could also just like grab a fork or spoon from your utensil drawer and take that with you as well. So using what you already have. And food packaging, looking at, again, how are you bringing your items home, whether it's from the grocery store, the farmer's market, shop in bulk with reused containers. Well, again, we'll touch on that when we talk a little bit more about Tare Market. Takeout container and coffee cup. This is really hard with COVID, and I've had a lot of internal battles with it between like trying to support local coffee shops and continually bringing in my own coffee mug and them letting me know that they are not handling coffee cups, reusable coffee cups at this time. But that's a really easy go-to when you're out and about, is bringing your own coffee cup when COVID is over. Cling wrap, I have a couple options that I like to use instead of cling wrap. There's the wax wraps, or bees wrap is the kind of the trendy one on the market right now. So it's basically a piece of fabric that is dipped in beeswax, and it works really well. You kind of have to use your hands to mold it around a bowl or a container or cup or whatever you're trying to cover. But they do work. I think cling wrap doesn't even work at all anyway. So I think bees wrap works really well. And there are a lot of other options out there aside from that one. And in addition to cling wrap, I do have some. They're made out of fabric. They have like an elastic binder around it, so you can really fit it nicely over a bowl. And there's a lot of other, they're still plastic, but silicone options that you can use in place of cling wrap. And certainly if you're using those, washing them, continue to use them and keep them out of the waste stream, that can certainly be a good option in place of cling wrap or even aluminum foil as well. Shopping bag, we heard a lot about plastic bags already this evening, and reusable bags. I think they're everywhere. They're readily available. I feel like any place you go, is either handing out reusable bags. You can buy them for less than $1. And disposable diapers, compared to cloth or compostable diapers, we actually have a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, we have a couple companies here in the Twin Cities that actually do cloth diaper delivery. So they will do all the laundry and delivery for you if that is not your thing. All right, reduce, reuse, recycle. So I'm sure we are all used to, and we've seen this slogan several times. This is kind of pretty iconic in the sustainability world, but we've really used, and we've heard this a little bit throughout this evening, recycle has really been a crutch, and it's really not the most sustainable way to worry about reducing our waste. And reduce and reuse has kind of fallen to the wayside in a sense. So you know, we buy something and we think, oh, it's plastic or it's paper or it's a broth container, we can recycle it. But really thinking more about what can we reduce? How can we reduce things coming into our household and reduce things going out into our household, whether it's to Eureka or to the landfill? And also reuse. So, you know, spending a little bit more on clothing and learning how to mend and or buying secondhand clothes and just continually using items that we have. The other day I made spaghetti, and the next morning I used a spaghetti jar as my smoothie cup. So, I mean, that's kind of, we're kind of at a point now where my husband's making me, you know, recycle some of those glass jars, but that's an example. Really, we can keep reusing what we have and in front of us if we just get creative and think of it differently versus using it and getting rid of it right away. One resource I want to share with you guys is B. Johnson's Zero Waste Home. If you've ever read that book, it's a good one. Kelly, oh, I thought Kelly, maybe you're reaching for it. But what B covers in this book are the 5 R's of zero waste. So refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot. So really starting at the top of the pyramid, you know, what can you refuse? If you're out at a restaurant, or we do this with takeout now, you know, trying to support local restaurants, I actually either make a note, or if I'm calling in, I refuse the plastic cutlery. Like, can you please skip the plastic cutlery for us? We don't need it. Or whenever we get a restaurant, refusing the plastic straw, asking them to, it feels kind of weird, but I think servers and restaurants are getting more and more used to it, especially here in St. Paul. There was a motion that passed to work on compostable takeout packaging. So I think we're kind of starting to make a shift, but that's certainly one thing that you can do. Or refuse to go shopping, like at H&M, you know, like check out a secondhand store. Really, again, just figuring out how you can change your habits to refuse bringing things into your house. And we touched a little bit on reduce, thinking more upstream. You know, how can you reduce items coming into your house, but also how can you reduce items going out of your house as well? Reuse, touched on this as well. You know, how can you get creative in reusing some of your products? I will say, you saw a little bit of it on the first slide, but a lot of my containers aren't super Instagram or, you know, the Home Edit. I haven't watched it on Netflix, but, you know, all these shows that are coming with these super fancy containers and they look so good and they look so pretty. I just keep washing what I have, whether it's like a maple syrup container or a spaghetti jar. You kind of got to soak it and scrub it, but it will come clean. My brother is a local farmer in northern Minnesota, and so they do maple syrup and make garlic powder. And I think he's so tired of me washing and like giving him back like the garlic powder containers and the maple syrup containers. But again, if they can reuse that, I'd rather take the time to wash it and send it back. And then, you know, as we get further down, recycling, it is there as a resource, but what we've heard tonight is it's kind of used as a crutch, and it's not certainly a solution to reducing our overall waste. And then rot, so that's speaking to organic materials. What can you take to the compost to get broken down properly? All right, so we have a couple additions here at Tare Market. So rethink, I mean, it kind of I think this kind of summarizes all of these, is really rethinking what your habits are, what you're purchasing, what you really need, and how you can use what you already have. Repair, there's a lot of great community education classes out there on sewing or simple mending. It just, I don't think, especially, I think we've lost a lot of like those simple basic mending skills and trying to figure out, or even like repairing a lamp. There's a lot of resources locally that you can take, like a broken lamp or a broken home appliance, and they'll actually sit with you, fix-it clinics, and they'll sit with you and try to fix it, so you don't end up just throwing it away and buying a brand new lamp or coffee machine or whatever it might be. So getting a little bit creative on how you can repair what you have. And revolution, I mean, really this zero waste sustainability lifestyle is kind of considered a revolution, because we're going against mainstream and what's trendy, what's popular, what's easy, and just seeing what role you can play in the revolution of sustainability. Okay, waste audit. So how to conduct a waste audit. So first and foremost, which will be really hard because you'll be conscious of this, but first step is try to change nothing with your habits, your purchasing patterns, and then you will track and weigh, assess your waste after 1 week. And this can be kind of done whatever is most comfortable for you, and you can certainly do it by room. So, okay, in St. Paul, we have trash pickup tomorrow. So if I'm emptying out the bathroom trash can, okay, what's all in here? And really just taking note of what I threw out throughout the week. And then same thing with your kitchen, and whether it's a notebook, I mean, you could do a whiteboard, you could do a notebook, not saying you have to sit and dig through your trash at the end of the week, but you know, when you throw something in the garbage can or the recycling bin, write that down. And we have, you know, Eureka here talking about local recycling and composting laws, but continue researching, you know, what you truly can recycle, compost, what are the hours of your compost site that you can bring those in on a weekly basis or wherever you need to, and really sit and think of ways where you can make effective swaps. So, you know, maybe hopefully most of us floss. So, you know, you have a lot of floss in your bathroom trash at the end of the week, you know, there's compostable floss that you can switch out, and try to focus on making one small change. And once that becomes familiar and comfortable to you, try to make an additional smaller change. So a lot of things that I have here to share with you tonight, I didn't start with absolutely everything that I have on the desk and then some. I started with one small thing, got myself as well as my husband comfortable with it, and then we were ready to continue adding on. And a lot of these things really have just kind of become second nature. And you know, when people come into our home, not that that's happening right now with COVID, but you know, with our dish bar and our dish brush, we're like, this is such a weird way to wash dishes, but we're so used to it now because we've continually compiling these small changes that it's been much more digestible. So Amber and Kate, who are the owners of Tare Market. So this was their waste after they did a waste audit, and then try to really implement some changes here. So up on the left hand with the burrito and the cereal, that is Kate and her husband's waste after 1 month. So, I mean, if you ask me, that's pretty dang impressive. And she would like to say that her husband was the one who needed the cross and country trail mix as well as the burrito. So that was kind of out of her control. And Amber has 3 small young ones. So this was her waste after 1 month. The candy wrappers were from her kids that they brought home from school one day because somebody had brought in treats. And then when they were traveling, they had a couple emergency accidents. So they had to use disposable diapers. And then she happened to have a flight. So the bag tag. So really try to focus on the big picture and don't try to stress yourself out over little things. I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed of where do we start? I have so much waste right now. I might as well not even try because there's just no way I'm going to get this down to zero. Just focus on what you can control. And like I said, take off little bite-sized pieces and make one small change at a time. So first and foremost, when you're looking at prioritizing, really look at ditching plastic. So how can you, when you're in a grocery store or the farmer's market or wherever you're grocery shopping, what can you purchase that is not plastic? We've heard that aluminum can be upcycled an infinite amount of times. Paper and natural fibers, they can't be recycled an infinite amount of times because every time they're recycled or upcycled, their fibers get shorter and shorter, but they certainly can be upcycled a little bit more than plastic. And then again, glass, we heard tonight, can be upcycled an infinite amount of time. So if you have an option between buying, let's say, ketchup in a plastic bottle or ketchup in a glass bottle, maybe shoot for the glass bottle instead of plastic, and just making small changes like that. Okay, zero waste grocery shopping. So this can be done. I think in Minnesota, it's a little bit harder because we have a very short farmers season, but if you get a little creative, you can definitely significantly reduce your waste while grocery shopping. So this is easiest when you find a store that aligns with your ethics as well as your goals. Bringing your own bags, jars, egg cartons, etc. I know this is really hard during COVID. I know like Trader Joe's, for instance, they made you leave your reusable bags outside in a cart and then grab them on your way out. Tare Market had to kind of suspend jar borrowing for a little while, and I think it's actually still suspended. In a lot of co-ops, you can bring in your own egg cartons and just fill them. I think that might have been discontinued as well, but there are stores when COVID's not happening that you can really bring in a lot of your own containers and refill those. Ask for help. I know I don't work the store much at Tare Market, but when people come in and it's their first time coming into Tare Market, it is truly a joy for me as well as the other ladies who are coming in to help you. So don't be afraid to ask. And I know co-ops are the same. I think Whole Foods is a pretty good experience as well. People who are working there really want to help you achieve your goals and make this much more accessible and less scary for you. Utilize the bakery and salad bar. Again, we're going to pretend COVID's not going on, but if you go to, co-op and you want a loaf of bread, you could bring in your own like flour sack or like a mesh produce bag. And oftentimes they will just put your bread into that bag, and then you can store it however you want to at home, but reduce one plastic bag from there. I try to always bring my mesh produce bags to like Trader Joe's, so I'm not buying, the plastic bag of apples, or if I forget my mesh produce bags, I usually just have like 8 apples roaming around my cart because I know they're compostable now, and I will use them as compostable bags if I have to use one, but there's just so many options out there instead of grabbing that plastic bag, and it really doesn't add much weight to the produce you're purchasing. Salad bar, Amber is notorious. When I first met her and started working with her, her favorite thing is to go to a salad bar, fill up her own container, and make stir fry. So instead of like throwing a bunch of, stir fry is a great way to get rid of a bunch of produce that's kind of on its last leg, but it was just her and her husband, and she didn't want to buy like a bag of carrots or a big thing of broccoli and risk it going to waste. So she would go to the salad bar, fill it up with whatever she wants, her and her husband want for stir fry that night, and then use it, and then there'd be no waste. So again, getting creative and learning to store food properly. There's a ton of information out there, and there's even some courses on how to properly store your food. A general rule of thumb, especially produce, it kind of lasts better in glass than plastic. But really learning how to store your food properly to lengthen its shelf life and reduce food waste is really important. Let's do a quick, time. We're doing okay on time, right, Lauren? Okay, great. Zero waste during COVID. So I try to figure out different ways of how we can reduce waste. And one thing that I've been encouraging in our webinars is now is the time to try something that you just never thought you'd have the energy for with work and a million activities. Like, oh, I'd love to try that new sustainable practice. It just seems like too much. Well, I mean, now we're kind of finding ourselves at home with maybe a little more time than what we're used to. I took my own advice on this, and I'll talk about my new sustainability switch, but wanted to share some ideas with you. You know, reduce food waste. We're home, we're eating a lot of meals at home. Take some time to inventory what's in your fridge, what's on its last leg, what needs to be used up, and really get into a habit of writing down, you know, when I meal plan, I write foods that need to be eaten, and then first create meals around the foods that need to be eaten. And then, you know, add in kind of filter in what we really need from the store. And then if there's anything, you know, if that's only 2 meals for the week, okay, well, what else am I looking, or what else do I want for the week? And then obviously build the grocery list from there, but really starting with the food we already have. BYOS is bring your own straw. It's cold here, and I don't believe cold coffee is a thing in Minnesota winter. But if you are going out and supporting local, again, it's going back to that refuse. Bring your own straw. And if the one thing you can do when you're supporting a local coffee shop is bring your own straw, it is worth it. And refuse a straw at the checkout if you can. Ask for paper, not plastic, or use self-checkout. So I found out this trick is if you're going to Target, you can do your reusable bags in the self-checkout. I don't know, it's been a really long time since I've been to Target, so I don't know if like the regular checkout aisles are letting you use reusable bags, but that is one trick you can use, is to bring your reusable bags to self-checkout and they won't refuse them. Ask for paper instead of plastic if you're at a spot where they will not let you use reusable bags. Just be sure to ask for paper and not plastic, and then try to recycle those paper bags. Talked a little bit about this earlier. Refuse plastic cutlery when doing takeout. Try new sustainable options at home. Compost food scraps, and use reusable washable face masks instead of like the one-time use ones. I don't think those work all that well because the straps break anyway. But with that, I wanted to do a little bit of a show and tell of what I have that we've slowly integrated over the years. But first, I wanted to lead with the my COVID new sustainable option at home is reusable paper towels. So these are readily available at Tare Market. The brand is Marley's Monsters, but there's a lot out there, and you can certainly even take some of your old t-shirts or towels and cut those down into little cloths. There's a lot of tutorials out there that I found. This is just a random gallon mason jar that I had in a little pop top. And there's a lot of tutorials out there on how you can fold the cloths or the reusable paper towels. So they literally act like Lysol wipes. So these are dry, ready to use. I have a wet bag that I throw them into, and I just wash them once a week, and then they're all folded, ready to be, this is pretty full, but ready to be pulled out and used for counter cloths or whatever. So this was one thing that always kind of intimidated me, or felt like I was a little too busy to take on. That was so silly. I mean, this has been a really easy switch. Another one, as I mentioned, is a dish. Instead of buying dish soap in the plastic containers, we buy a dish soap bar at Tare Market. And this is really, I need to go get another one. We're kind of on its last leg, but if you wet your brush and then you kind of just swirl it in over the bar, it gets really sudsy and it works really well. We've been doing this for about 1.5 years now. So that's one easy switch. Let's see, stasher bags are very trendy. I will say that I've tried a lot of reusable plastic bags, and stasher is like bar none the best quality that I've experienced. So we happen to have several sizes of stasher bag. These are available at Target. They're available at Tare Market. You can buy them from their website, and they come delivered in all recyclable or compostable packaging. These are dishwasher safe. They're microwave safe. They have a sous vide. We don't have one of those, but if you do, a lot of people swear by doing their sous vide in one of these instead of a plastic bag. So this is, I often make granola and then pop it in a stasher bag, or I take my stasher bags to Tare Market and fill these to fill the jars that I have at home as kind of a way to transfer them from the store to my house, like refilling popcorn kernels, because I eat popcorn a lot. One other simple thing is, instead of using, this is a baking sheet liner. So instead of using like parchment paper or aluminum foil, I just use this, and it's actually kind of a non-stick option anyway. And then you can protect your sheet, but you can always keep washing this and reusing it. So that eliminates that. My absolute favorite, and I have converted so many people, is bar shampoo and conditioner. So the High Bar, sorry, the lighting's really weird. High Bar is actually a local company here in Minneapolis in Linden Hills. So this is paraben-free, sulfate, silicone. I think they're vegan and cruel. They're definitely cruelty-free, but I'm pretty sure they're vegan as well. We've been using these for about 3 years now. This box is compostable, so it is completely, technically zero waste, but it's just a little, and these last, like people with long hair, I would always go through conditioner much quicker than shampoo. It is actually the opposite with bar soap. I go through shampoo much quicker than I go through conditioner, but you just wet it. You can either streak it through your hair, or, you know, you can kind of suds it up in your hands and then using your hands. But again, that just totally eliminates the need for plastic shampoo and conditioner bottles. And then same thing with bar soap. So this is Sebesta Apothecary is another local soap maker. We use this for our body wash instead of what's in plastic bottles. A more recent one is a plastic-free razor. So Leaf Razor is completely plastic-free. Tare Market also sells these, but you essentially, they come with razor blades, and then you break the razor blades in half, and this top unscrews, and then you place them in, but it eliminates not only like the single-use razors, but also the plastic razor heads as well. I think 2 more here is reusable face rounds. So I just keep for, you know, washing my face or toner or anything. These are available at Tare Market. They wash up really, really well. These are 6 months old and they look brand new. Instead of the cotton face rounds, which actually has plastic in it as well. So those do not break down. And then instead of Swiffer, like dusting, this is just a reusable dusting mitt that we have. So a couple switches that have kind of just been a daily thing for us. We will keep moving here. So we touched on this, I think, in consideration of time, we'll breeze through this one, but moving towards zero waste, looking at how you can really minimalize and simplify your lifestyle and what you are using. Eating more sustainably, seasonal, local, organic. Again, that's a little bit hard in Minnesota, but really leverage the farmers markets when they're here. A lot of farmers, you know, I bring like the mesh produce bags, and they're more than happy to let me use those instead of the plastic bags. Get to know a farmer. You know, we try to buy meat, honey, things like that from a local farmer versus going through the grocery store. And also they're kind of they tend to be packaged more in paper when you work with a local farmer versus plastic. And then fight food waste. So figure out how to meal plan, take inventory of your fridge, get creative, make a lot of stir fry or smoothies. I tend to throw a bunch of random stuff in smoothies as well. Okay, Tare Market really quickly. Before I forget, everybody who's on this call, you do get $5 off your next Tare Market purchase. Of course, because we're zero waste, we don't actually hand out coupons, but we will take your word for it at checkout. Just let them know you attended this educational webinar with me, and they will gladly honor and take $5 off your purchase. But Tare Market actually opened in officially our storefront was Earth Day, April 2019. There were a lot of pop-up shops happening in fall 2018 to help with funding, but it is the first zero waste store here in the Twin Cities as well as in Minnesota. There have been a couple that have popped up. I know Duluth recently opened a zero waste store, but follow us on Instagram. You'll kind of, if you haven't been into the store, you'll get a look and feel on our Instagram page. But really how it works is you bring in your reusable containers. We used to have a like a community shelf where you could borrow jars, and that's where I would bring in like my boxes of glass jars so that we'd have a full sanitizing station in the back. But unfortunately with COVID, we have temporarily discontinued that program. But if you hoard containers like I do, it's a really good way to get them somewhere where you know they're going to be washed properly and reused. But bring your reusable containers, get creative. I've had people come in with like their super decorative ceramic countertop containers that hold like their grains or flowers and just use that. But you'll bring in your containers, you'll weigh it. We have chalk pens available, so you'll put down what it weighs. You'll fill it with whatever you want to fill it with: olive oil, honey, flour, quinoa, rice, pasta. I mean, there's so many options. And then you don't have to re-weigh it after you fill it. When you bring that container up to checkout, we will weigh it for you, subtract what that weight was before you refilled it, and then it's considered tearing it. So we tear that weight out. And so you're really truthfully only paying for the product that you are refilling your container with. Again, kind of touched on any container works. Spices, we have a ton of spices: coffee, loose leaf tea, kombucha, cold press. And then these are just the goals of Tare Market. We're just here to support people on their sustainable journey, because it is certainly a journey. And there's a really cool zero waste community here in the Twin Cities. So if you're interested in connecting with some of them, they do some fabulous webinars and meetings as well. And really, we just want to carry products that are as local as possible to support our local economy and community. So everything that you see at Tare Market, you know, we try to get directly from the Twin Cities, if not from the Twin Cities, from Minnesota, if not from Minnesota, the Midwest, and we kind of branch out as necessary, but we really try to get as local as possible, because not only do we want to support local, but that's also a way to live more sustainably as well. Provide educational workshops and classes. So similar to what we're doing tonight, we were doing a ton of fun educational workshops pre-COVID. Amber and I are meeting in a couple weeks to try to get creative with virtual ones. We've done like a make your own kombucha, or for new parents, getting to know cloth diapers and the cloth diaper delivery companies that we have here in the Twin Cities. So just visit our website, or like I said, follow us on Instagram, and we're going to try to get those started, obviously virtually in the meantime, and host community events to bring people together to share ideas, support, and encourage eco-friendly lifestyles. We've held before a zero waste dinner at Birchwood Cafe. It was really fun. It was really no formal event. It was just, we all came together and talked, just kind of connected as like-minded people. So we will continue those events as soon as we're able to. All right, that is all that I had. So I will quit sharing my screen and open it up for questions.
I know that one came in a chat window from Eva. Any ideas on pet waste between recycling and organics? I don't have much garbage, but about half is dog and cat waste. Eva, I hear you. That's also at our house. The dog waste is in compostable plastic and the cat waste is in plastic bags. Great question.
Good question. So a couple thoughts, because we actually have we have 2 dogs and we have 2 cats. So we deal with this as well. There are at Tare Market, and they're widely available. They're called bio bags. So pet waste can't be composted. You can, you'll have to read, I personally don't have experience in this, but there is a way that you can have a container or dig a hole in your backyard, and you'll pour, I'm blanking on what the product is, to help break it down if you want to take it to that level. But otherwise there are more like plastic free dog bags that you can purchase for waste. For litter, one thing that we do, and we do a bulk litter program. So I think it's available at like Petco, PetSmart. We do this through Urban Pet Tail Supply, which is in Uptown, right across from the Wedge. They do free curbside delivery, or free doorstep delivery, I should say. But we have plastic containers that that when they're empty, we just order a couple more and we set out the empty ones. They take the empty ones, completely sanitize them, and then give us full ones. So at least that reduces the big plastic bins that you buy from Target or other pet stores. As far as how to, there's no way to not have waste from either animal. In cats, I talked a little bit to somebody about really the only way to do that is if you were to do newspaper litter for your cats. My cats are older. I don't think they would be super cool with that switch. So again, we're just we do the bulk litter program to reduce waste that way. Does that help a little bit? It's not zero waste. Like I said, I don't think you'll ever be zero waste with animals, but there's a couple ways to reduce your waste.
Yeah, and regarding the composting, the compost sites themselves would have to request special permission from the Pollution Control Agency commissioner to be able to add pet waste to their permit. And none of them really want to do that because odors are a very, very real thing that have shut down compost facilities across the world. So none of them are too keen on opening the doors to saying they will accept pet waste for fears that they've opened the floodgates. And once you've done that, you can't really close it very easily. So unfortunately, I'm same boat. I have a cat, and that is the only thing I put in my garbage every week is pet waste.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Oh, Linda is asking, can dog poop be flushed down the toilet without the bag? Yes, I have done that for years. It is a production, and and it's gonna go through our sewer system and sanitary sewer, and so not fully zero waste through that either. However, if if the bag use is really an important next step for you in your household, I would say that it can be done with a container and some kind of scoop, and it can be more challenging in the winter, but I've done it if you want to talk more, friend.
Yes, that's a good point. And one other thing that we do, so we're not just using like one bag for one bathroom visit, we have a like a bin outside that so it's like one compostable bag that we can use versus like one bag, like I said, for every visit. So that's another way, little less plastic.
Well, I'm waiting for some more questions to come in. Kelly reminded me that Hennepin County actually has a plastic-free challenge happening now through February 17th. So I'm going to link that into the chat window. And then I also want to put in one more plug for being able to screen the story of plastic. This is the film that we've been promoting as part of this Let's Talk About Plastic series that's hosted by the Armatage Neighborhood Association's Green Team. We are actually lucky enough to have one of the experts featured in that film here tonight, which is Priscilla from Eureka Recycling in her previous life as an organizer in Texas. To say that that's a pretty life-changing film and that it will give you a lot of motivation to make some simple swaps is kind of an understatement. You can stream it for free by signing up at armatage.org/plastics. And the link will be live through this Sunday, January 31st. So you've still got a nice long weekend if that sounds like a good thing to do. It's 90 minutes and it is well worth your time.
Lauren, can I share my screen quick? There was this excellent comic in the Star Tribune this past week that I think everyone here will enjoy. Let's see. Here it is. Can you guys see it? Isn't that
super cute.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, those are milk jugs on his feet. I'm like, what are on his feet?
Yeah.
Got it.
And then just as a fun little teaser for what's soon to be coming from our office, we actually did do a survey of residents on how their behavior has changed since COVID. And so we just finished the pretty version of those survey results here today. So you are seeing them before they're even fully finalized. But happy to report, as you can see, 65% of people feel more aware of the waste created in their home. Motivations to reduce waste, think if buying new, all of these have increased. So I think, if there's one good thing to come out of 2020, it is changing in actual behaviors related to buying, using, and disposing of items. Bag usage was a kind of across the board. We had some people who switched to curbside pickup. We had and said that, they couldn't pick between paper or plastic. We've got increase in deliveries, and then stores stopped allowing reusable bags for a while. And then we did, here's the other fun one. Oh, here we go. Different usage of single-use paper items, reusable alternatives. And some of those were a little bit across the board. Here, I'll go down here to make life easier. So big increase in cleaning wipes, but also an increase in reusable rags and towels and cloth napkins. Some had an increase in paper plates, but there was also a decrease in paper plates. And for both paper plates and silverware, the decrease was higher than the increase. So I think more time at home has resulted in people being able to take the time to actually clean those items. And where's the one? Oh, here we go, talking about all the silverware. Here we go, disposable silverware provided by the restaurant. 70% of people never or rarely use the silverware provided. Only 36% request that they not provide it when they're making their order. And good to know that 88% of people would support a city ordinance or a requirement that stores or restaurants could not provide them unless it was requested. So there's some other fun things in here too. We've got a whole section on clothing, but I'm not going to go into that because we're not really focused on that. And there's a whole section on food too. So stay tuned for us for the actual release of that, which hopefully will be posted on our website tomorrow.
So speaking of websites, I wanted to just mention the link that I plugged in. So at Eureka, Dee, I loved your presentation. I've definitely done some changes in my home lifestyle around zero waste that you mentioned. So I was like, yay, like reusable facial cleansing wipes or whatever, like all that's really great. And on our website, we have what we call the 3 C's. So whether you want to take action at a personal level, or what we call consumer level, or a community level, which is like participating in, some local community effort that's happening in your neighborhood, or whether it's participating at a collective level, and that's policy. And we think all 3 of those are equally as important to get to a zero waste planet, essentially. So we have really great links that for each of those 3 C's on our Take Action page. And so I linked that in the chat if anyone's interested.
There are so many good resources on that page. Thank you so much for linking it. Last call for any questions. Linda pointed out that we're having a growing number of restaurants in Minneapolis and in St. Paul that are using the reusable to-go containers that then you bring back. Namaste Cafe is one, Butter Bakery and Cafe at 37th and Nicollet is another. And there are so many more that I'm not remembering, but it's really phenomenal to see traction and so many restaurants who are eager to adapt and help their customers go zero waste. Alrighty, going. Thank you so much to each of our speakers, to Priscilla, Kellie, Adriana, and Dee. We are so grateful to you for sharing your expertise with all of us tonight. I learned tons, and this is a field I've worked in a lot, and I think that's true across the board. We will be sharing a recording of this workshop on our website. It'll be posted at armatage.org/plastics. Which is also the same link if you do want to sign up to Screen the Story of Plastic. You may have the link at the bottom of your email for this workshop as well. And just thank you again so much. I'm going to stop the recording here and we can linger on Zoom as folks have to get going.